Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often here. Wipe my tears, only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center. Found out my skin's tough as leather, I can storm through any weather. Addiction was the hardest battle I ever.
Welcome to the Message Hope Podcast, where hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today in the studio, as you guys know, we invite people who we love and respect, and this gentleman is somebody who I look up to in service and faith in many different ways, and he came in here today to share his experience with us. So, Kelley, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, welcome, Kelley.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelley Arnold, and I want to start this thing off with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I just ask that you be with us here today and that you give me the strength to say what I need to say so that it can be an example of you and to allow people to hear what they need to hear from this podcast. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. That was a first for anybody who follows.
Yeah.
Normally we do that right before recording, and Kelley wanted to do it while recording, so that was awesome. Thank you for that,
thank
Kelley.
You, bro.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Kelley, we always start at the same, man. Like, tell us what it was like for you growing up. Where did you grow up? Was there siblings? Was there addiction around? Things like that.
First off, thank you guys for having me. This is an honor, and I'll try to do my best to not curse too much because I have a problem with cursing, and please don't. If that offends anybody, my thing is that I'm not here to offend anybody. My hope is that you get something out of my story that can help you save your life or even just better yourself. So I start off, I have a lot of labels. Like I said, my name is Kelley Arnold. I am an addict, an adult child of alcoholics. I do suffer from bipolar with psychosomatic episodes. And I have all these diagnoses, and the fact of the matter is I'm no different than anyone else. Is the thing that I've come to realize, and now at 50 years old, that it's taken me a long time to realize, like, there's no difference between me or anybody else, the fact that, I get to hear a lot of traumas, and me being really close to the addiction community and people with mental illness, I get to hear a lot of traumas, and, I'm one of the ones that didn't have, like, some of the traumas that other people has had. Like, I was raised in a middle-class family. Both my parents were alcoholics. I have an older sister that picked on me like most older sisters do, and, and I think back about it, and I allowed all these differences because I didn't have the traumas other people did, even though my outcome was the same, just dereliction and just doing whatever to get to make myself feel at ease, whether it was good or just numb. Right. That's where it always ended for me. Like I said, both of my parents were alcoholics. My dad was my baseball coach, my Boy Scout leader. My parents were both on the board for baseball. Like I had some advantages. I was raised in middle class Redlands, and the advantages that you would think I could have took advantage of, I really didn't. I allowed them to be a crutch for me. And don't get me wrong. Like I look back on it. It didn't matter what I did. I was never going to be the best. Like, and that's how I was raised. Like that, like there's always going to be somebody better than you. My parents kind of just trained that into me. And, and I'd get to a point where I would do so well at something, and then I would be like, well, I'm never going to be the best. I'd just give up. And then, and it started off, I was a little kid that got in. I was always into mischief. I think in third grade, I had gotten into my dad's liquor cabinet and drank like some Crown Royal and couldn't go to school, and they had to keep me home for my hangover for the next day. As the story goes, I don't even remember any of that. In first grade, I had my first skull fracture. And then in third grade, I had my second skull fracture from riding a bike on bicycle accidents. And, I ended up with some disabilities. I had some learning disabilities because of it. I was out of school for a long time. They didn't think I was going to live through the second one. And, thinking back now and hearing the stories, I always had I was born with asthma, and I had real bad asthma things and had to deal with all this stuff and had a lot of problems as a child physically. and then the whole going through that, and then feeling different once I came back from my second fracture skull at school, and then I'm having to take special ed courses, and I also had suffered from dyslexia as a child, so I had all these differences that made me stick out. So I became like the bully, elementary school. I was like this bully in the school, like, just to get attention. So, I don't really know where that played in my life. I know a lot of it was I always was looking for something to change the way I felt because I didn't feel like I fit in, and I remember, and then I went to junior high, and same thing. I was still, when I graduated high school, I was still like at an 8th grade reading level because of my dyslexia, and it was never diagnosed. So they didn't even at that when I was in school those years, they didn't really diagnose you with dyslexia. They didn't even know. They just were like, "You're stupid, kid. Like, go to these classes,
Yeah.
And or at least that's how I felt. I'm not saying that's But anyway, so yeah, I got to junior high, and I was always into playing ball. I played baseball, and I remember, and I was somewhat decent at it. I wasn't the best player out there, but I always practiced. That was like my life was baseball. Like that's how my escape was before drugs came into the mix for me. And I remember then, and I was in trouble quite a bit because I was always getting into some kind of stupid mischief, whether it was throwing stuff at cars or, there was this guy with this toy house that lived like by us, and I remember breaking into his house just so we could play with the toys. We didn't steal nothing. We just broke into the house and played with the toys and then left, and did that so many times we finally got caught, and just stupid stuff, and I remember at one time the police even had to come to my house from us egging cars and just, and it was always shameful, like I was full with a lot of shame because that was just the way, unfortunately, my parents learned how to be parents, and if anything I says sounds like I'm bitter towards my parents, it's not. I do believe that they did the best they could with the information they allowed themselves to have.
Yeah.
And I say that allowed themselves to have because I believe the information was out there. They just didn't seek it because they thought they were doing a good enough job with what they had to give. And that still speaks true to this day. Like, so I did the best I could. I got really involved with sports. I tried to, and then I got to high school and I realized natural talent. And I didn't realize that some kids are just born with the natural talent to play sports.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how hard I practiced, I wasn't going to ever be that good. And
Yeah.
I was like, damn. That really was I think that really burst in my bubble because I really had this dream of being some Major League Baseball player. And then it was just like, yeah, that kid doesn't even practice and he's way better than I am, And I had some serious jealousy issues, and I just kind of, I remember at that time too, like on the weekends, my parents would send me with my grandparents after like we'd have a game on Saturday, and then it was go with your grandparents, and I get to spend, Saturday and Sunday with my grandma and grandpa in San Bernardino, and I really that was my true mentors, the angels God sent to me, and they got me really involved with their church because they were church-going people, and I got really involved with St. Paul's United Methodist in San Bernardino, and they were sending me all over the country to groom me to be a minister at one time. As a real young kid, like 13 to 15, they were sending me, like, because I was really involved. I would speak during service. I was in choir. I was the candle acolyte, and I did a lot of stuff involved with the church because I loved it because I got all this great rewarding compliments from the older people, and it was just, it felt really good to me to do that, and I truly believe that was when Jesus was reaching out to me because my parents were those people. They were hippies. They didn't, they were like, we're not going to push religion on you. Like, if you choose that, that's your choice, but we're not, and it's kind of come full circle because now they're very religious, church-going people, and I should say they're very church-going people. And I don't know, my life has been a trip. So yeah, I was doing that, and I got really involved in that, and then for some reason I decided at 15, and I remember I was a sophomore in high school, I smoked my first joint, and I found my first lust in weed, dude. Like I was whatever that was, dude. Because like I said, both of my parents were alcoholics, so like drinking was kind of part of my story, but it wasn't, because I was like, I don't want to be like my parents. Like
Right.
that was always my story. I never wanted to be like my folks, you know, and so I never got into drinking. I was, I've been drunk maybe 10 times my whole life, like belligerently drunk, maybe 10 times at best my whole life. And I was just like, this is not me. I don't like it, and I don't know if that was more of resentment that I had towards my parents, that I didn't want to be like them, or just the fact that I just don't like that feeling. Like, but when I smoked some weed, I was like, it was on, and I initially just went right into selling. Like that was my story. Like I got right into it, and then I got right into the whole lifestyle, of selling drugs, being around gang members, and getting involved in gangs, and doing all that stuff. And it really, for some reason, it was appealing to me.
Yeah.
And I totally kind of just backed away from the church thing, and I just pursued that, and it didn't change my relationship that I had come to establish with Christ, and and all that, but it was more like, you're on the back burner for now. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do.
That was my same experience too. It was like we have a few similarities. Baseball, child of addict or alcoholic, and but feeling just discontent from the very beginning, and then the first hit of weed, it was like I'd find relief in mischievous behavior, or find relief in getting away with something a little bit. But as soon as I found that, it was just like, it was relief from this looming, just like feeling not good enough, always, for no good reason, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It was there for as long as I can remember. And once that, once I got that first one in, it was just relief for me, and then it would just on from there. The rest is history. So.
Absolutely.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. And so I found that, and like I said, I got involved with selling weed pretty quickly, and and I wasn't like some hardcore drug dealer, but I had enough to be able to keep some money in my pocket and be the high school kid that everybody. And I remember I was the TA for the assistant principal at Redlands High, and he came to me and he goes, we know you're selling drugs on our campus, and I was just like, just trying to play oblivious, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're tripping. He's like, I'm gonna catch you. I'm like, okay, good luck, and that was like the sign of many that were thrown out there, like, hey, you might want to slow down, you might want to stop, you might want to change your ways. And I was like, no. And shortly thereafter, I found myself in a what they called a racial riot, which was really two guys tried to jump me, and I got off first, and I knew they were coming to jump me, so I got off first and looked for the security guard and kind of socked him, and luckily they broke it up, and they said there were some racial slurs that were thrown out there just because high school kids do that, and they sent me off out of the school district for my own protection, and so then I ended up going to Ukaipa High, and kind of the same. It kind of followed me, Ukaipa and Redlands has a rivalry. They didn't like guys from Redlands. I'm from Redlands, and we already had a rivalry because of baseball. And so I got over there, and it didn't work out. And I ended up then I got sent off to the continuation school there because I got into a little trouble there, and it was really funny because I was able to really manipulate the continuation school because I was book smart, I guess, because I would stay up. I said at 15, I smoked my first joint, and by 3 months later, I got sick of not being able to stay up and enjoy it. Like, I'd get the giggles, I'd get the munchies, and then I would fall asleep, and I'd miss out on my high. So and I was always kind of a bigger kid, so somebody turned me on to meth, and I did. The first time I ever did meth, I actually got caught. My mom went through my backpack and found the mirror and the straw, and sent me to Narcotics Anonymous, and they didn't just send me to Narcotics Anonymous because, like I said, I was from a middle-class family, and they were just like, you got a problem, you need to do something about it. They sent me to a psychiatrist, they sent me and it was weird because at the time, 15, I was just experimenting, and it was that time of life, and that's what the psychiatrist said, hey, it's normal for kids to experiment with stuff, he's just experimenting, and they're like, no, he's got a problem, and, I went to NA, and I remember going, and it's funny because I share this quite often, I went to this meeting, and it was the zoo meeting in Redlands, which is still going on. And I remember going in, they had funny names for everybody, like Jungle Jack was the secretary, and the treasurer, they had like Lion Tamer, Trish was the, treasurer. And it was really, I thought, oh, this is weird. And there was all these guys, and they're wearing Harley Davidson stuff and bandanas, and there was like 3 bikes in the parking lot, and we're smoking in a church, and they had more tattoos than teeth. And the funny part about that is now, 36 years later, whatever it's been, I have more tattoos than teeth, and I ride a Harley, so it's kind of full circle funny. But I really didn't fit in because I was doing the gang thing and trying to figure out that stuff, and I just didn't feel, I let all the differences separate me, you know. And, and thinking back now, it was more, the disease was just keeping me separated from what I needed to do for myself. I truly.
And at 15, I mean, who really thinks they have a problem at 15? You know what I mean? I mean, there are some severe cases where people are really getting loaded at 15, but at 15, like, you're dabbling here, you're dabbling with that. Like, I know for me, I was trying everything to find out what I liked, you know what I'm saying? So, like, at 15, if you would have told me I had a problem, I'm like, bro, I'm partying, I'm just having fun. Like, everybody's doing it, you know what I mean? But not everybody ends up like we do, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Immediately when you said that too, I was like, okay, I'm trying to put myself in that position. I have a 15-year-old, and I find meth in their backpack. I'm wanting to know, where the hell did you get this? Not like, here, go to this meeting, but like, I'm an addict, so I'm trying to get to the bottom of it anyway. But that's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and once again, that's one of my whole family deals is like, we don't, you go deal with your problem. Where the supporting thing is something that we're, luckily with my kids, I'm able to change that, and say, hey, if you got a problem, like, I'm here to help. Like, and that's just another gift I've gotten from being a part of the 12-step programs. And, I don't know, like, so at that point, like at 15, I'm just, just doing my thing, and I'm thinking like, there's no problems, and by, and I continue to party like that for a good while, and then the consequences start coming, my parents are catching me all the time with weed in my pockets, like and like, I'm like, well, okay, and come to back now, it's really funny because here we are years later, and now I go over to their house and I find weed at their house. What I mean? So it's like, wow. That actually just happened on Thursday. So, I love the fact that I
would have scolded them just to be funny about it.
What is this? Well, I was there to pick up my dad, who obviously had too much to drink and fell one more time, and had to go over there and pick him up. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing out here? Smoking weed? And he's like, what do you mean? Because it's in the garage. And I'm like, well, there's a pop pipe and a lighter right there. You out here smoking weed or what? So we got a little giggle out of that. And, I don't know, so, yeah, and I remember I used to get into trouble for it, like, because back then you got to think that was a felony, like what I was doing. And, like, and I was even a bigger idiot than that. Like, when I would have people meet me because I lived 2 blocks up from the Redlands police station and the courthouse, and I'd have people meet me in the parking lot to sell them drugs at the police station in the courtroom parking lot.
Safest place to do it.
Yeah, and coming in, coming out, everybody's always in and out of the courthouse, and like, just dumb, and or just insane thinking and behavior, and I was lucky enough I didn't get caught for a lot of the crap I pulled, and moving on from there, and then I was just getting involved more with this whole street life because, thinking back now, I see it was a safety protocol for me. Like, because I was doing what I was doing, you had to have somebody to have your back to be able to back you up in case shit hit the fan, and I remember the first time stuff did hit the fan, and a couple people died in the gang I was associated with, and that's when I realized that life, like the whole gang thing was interesting and intriguing, but at the same time it was like, I don't belong here. Like, this isn't a place for me. You know what I mean? Like, there was people doing things I didn't, to this day, I still don't necessarily agree with, as far as, just telling on people and stuff like that. And I was just like, look, I'm out. Like, this is rap for me, and I remember I stepped back from that, and I became like kind of independent, and to this day, like, it's funny because I have a lot of friends in a lot of places doing, and it's really weird because thinking back, people always are like, oh, you got to be involved, you got to do this. And I was like, no, I didn't have to do that. And I was still doing stuff I shouldn't be doing and quantities I shouldn't have been doing it in and all that other stuff. And I was always chasing like some idea of like that was going to provide me with the person I wanted to be. And come to find out, it never did. You know, it just didn't. Even, you know, and like I said, I started coming to Seek and Recovery after I got busted for the first time. And let me rewind a little bit. So at 19, I had my first child. At 18, I found the second lust of my life, and we had a child. And I'm one of the statistics, like the first girl I was ever with, I had a child with, which was always scared me, and that's why I wasn't with women until I was 18 years old. Like I was like scared, like we're gonna have a child, like and it happened, you know. And then I had a child with her, and you know, unfortunately, you know, I come to realize like some people were never taught how to love. Yeah. And unfortunately, she was one of those people. Like my mother's daughter was my daughter's mother was one of those people that unfortunately their form of love isn't the same form of love that I know, you know. And, and at 6 months old, I got custody of my daughter. So I'm a 19-year-old with the only thing I really know how to do was sell drugs. And because during that time, that 15 to 19-year-old time when I should have been learning how to get a career and or go to college or whatever stuff, I was too busy partying and doing, you know, working a pizza delivery job, which was a great front for dropping off drugs, you know. Yeah. And, you know, and then I had that child, and I remember sitting in the hospital with just bawling, dude, because, you know, I think when she was in labor, I was still sneaking off to the bathroom to get high. Like I was still on one, you know. Yeah. And then the baby came out, you know, and if you've ever had a child or got to be in the delivery room and that baby comes out and you see it with all the stuff all over it and you're just like, holy shit. Yeah. It became real, you know, like, and I went, and I just bawled for like a day and a half straight, dude, just sitting there. And she wouldn't eat because, you know, I let the doctors know, like, you know, I was using the whole time and we were still having consensual sex. So, you know what I mean? Like that, maybe that's how the drugs got into the baby system, which, you know, now everybody knows that's not the truth. Like me and the mother were using the whole time together. But at the time, you know, you know, I wasn't going to be no snitch, you know, like, and I just told the doctors like, that's probably how this happened. And she's got meth in her system. And so they knew how to treat my daughter. And, the doctors were really like just blown away that a father came up and say that. And I was just like, well, you know, I want what's best for my child, even if I wasn't doing that, because, you know, for whatever reason, I didn't think it was real at the time. And, you know, watching her pregnant for the second time, because the first time we lost a baby, the second time we got to have one, and it didn't hit home until that baby was actually in my arms crying. And I was just like, holy shit, what have I done? So I remember at that time I decided, you know, I'm going to try and do something about my problem, you know, and I did, and I did real well. And I worked with CPS, and they actually got involved because the hospitals called them, and, you know, we're telling the mother she had to do all these things, and they were telling me, like, there's, you know, you're just the father. Like that was their actual reaction. I'm like,
that's
well,
crazy that it was like that then.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, what are you telling the mother to do? Yeah. Well, I go, what are you telling the mother to do? And I go, well, we're telling her to enroll in these programs and do this. And I'm like, done. I went down there. I enrolled in Riverside County Mental Health and went through their drug treatment program, and you know, and did pretty well there for a long time. And you know, and I did. And I got custody of my daughter. CPS even signed, you know, sent in documents like the father deserves to have this child. Like, you know, and until at least 18, like my daughter still never talked to her mother. You know, and that was just unfortunate. You know. To this day, that daughter just turned 30. Okay, so I went to jail. I got arrested when my daughter was 2. So I stayed clean for about a year after getting custody of her. For a year and a half, about total, I stayed somewhat clean. I think I smoked weed once or twice in that time, but and not to say that's okay. It just was what it was. And I ended up getting custody of her, and things went well for a while, you know. And then I'm a 19-year-old trying to raise a child, and you know, I had no idea what I was doing. And you know, reality smacked me in the face one more time. I got a job at Baker's and then Walmart, and then, you know, and I really wasn't doing any 12-step programs. I was just trying to do, I was doing whatever the outpatient thing was doing, and I was doing the testing and all that stuff, but I was just trying to make it work that way. And lo and behold, on my birthday, January 8th, I believe it was 2000. I don't know. Sorry, it wasn't 2000. It was 96 or 97. I remember I got arrested for the very first time. And, when they caught me, I had just picked up and some speed, and I was on my way home because, I was trying to be that good father. So I would wait until, I put my daughter, because I was living with my parents, and I wait until I put her to bed because they would be there to hear her. And then I'd go run off and play in the streets and then be home by the time she woke up so I could be there to change diapers and rock her and feed her and do all that, and that's what I thought, what an ironic thought that was what a good father did, thinking back now. And I remember that when I got arrested, and she was 2.5 years old, and I got arrested for H&S 11550E, which is under the influence with a firearm. And I don't know why they didn't charge me for the drugs too, but they didn't. And I remember I went in, and I was, it was the gig was up. Like this literally is now controlling my life, And I went to jail, and then I got out, and while I was in there, I was told I was signing temporary guardianship of my daughter over to my sister, because I asked my sister. I did call her for one of my 3 calls, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to take my daughter for a little while because I can't. I'm messed up, And she said, okay, I'll get you the paperwork. And somehow we got the paperwork. They got the paperwork to me in there, and I signed it. And what I failed to do was I didn't read through it, and it was permanent guardianship.
Yeah.
And anybody that's ever had to deal with that, temporary guardianship and permanent guardianship are a lot harder. Temporary is a lot easier to get your child back, where permanent is permanent. Like that's, and, and I still don't blame my sister. I do believe she thought she was doing the best interest. But I wish I could say I still don't resent it, because there's a part of me that still resents that, still resents that happened, and the way everything turned out, and that's, that's okay. It is what it is. And today, me and my sister have a pretty good relationship. We talk pretty often, and my daughter knows. I was always known who I was, even with that. I still got to be weekend. Not weekend because she lives 500 miles away, but any long breaks, my daughter was with me. I'd get up there for all holidays and stuff like that. We get to see each other, and my daughter always said, "I never felt like you weren't part of my life." She tells me that today.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I remember that, and I got busted, and I went. And they finally let me out. And by that time, my parents had kicked me out of their house, and they had found that the credit card I got in my dad's name, because I could get a lot more credit with his credit card and a lot less interest rate, and I was paying it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I was trying to do the right thing. I thought in my drug addict mind, like I'm not really hurting anybody by doing this.
Just making your credit better.
No, I just ran a credit card like with $4,500 on it, and And the insane things that I chose to do when I was on drugs,
Yeah.
And and so that gig was up, and then I had a detective from Redlands looking for me, and it was the detective's. He was a legend back in the day. It was Captain Midnight, and I remember he caught up with me, and I just told him, once I got a phone call, I was like, "Hey, bro, like here's where I'm at. Like, when do you want me to come in? I'll come in and interview for you. Like, no problem." And I remember I going into the interview room, and he goes, "I'm going to start this tape. And everything's going to be recorded." And he goes, "I want you to look through these and tell me if you did this and which ones you didn't do. And I go, "Hey," go ahead and start the tape. And I go, "Everything on there I did." Like, we'll make it real easy for you. And he's like, "You are being recorded." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like, it's okay."
Yeah.
Like, I was on drugs. I wasn't in the right state of mind. This is not something I would do to my folks, and I'm not saying the drugs were the fault. It was just the way I chose to perceive things when I'm on drugs. And he goes, "Okay." And I remember when he stopped the tape, and he talked to me, and he goes, "Dude," he goes, "I've never had anybody come in and just be like, yeah." I'm like, "Bud, like, this is, I want to change. And if I don't do this, I'm not going to be able to change if I just continue to hide this stuff and act like it didn't happen." And I remember he wished me the best of luck, and for some reason, charges were never filed.
Wow.
Even though I went in there totally admitted to all of it. And I remember I ended up getting high when I was out on a cruise waiver waiting to be sentenced. That was a whole nother story.
Whole nother case.
Yeah. What happened is they let me out on a cruise waiver because weeks before I got arrested, some guy was beating up his girl down the street from my house, and I was the one that ran in there and saved his girl. And the DA still wanted me as a witness on that case. So they let me out on a cruise waiver on my other drug charge, and that's why I got out early. And I remember I ended up getting loaded because I had nowhere to go, and all those feelings were still there, and I wasn't doing nothing about my problem. And I remember going to the PO to check in that following week, and I because they got to do a report before they sentence you, and they wanted to do an assessment on me, and I went in there and I said, hey, you know, like, I'm loaded, and I'm not gonna. I go, you might as well just swipe whatever you guys are gonna give me the 16, 3 or 5 joint suspended, and let's just do this because I'm not being able to stay clean. And I remember he goes, I got to go talk to my supervisor. I'll be right back. And he came back in and he said, you know, I have to offer you a program because you just did this. Like, I can't just send you upstate now. And I'm like, really? I'm like, all right, well, where are we going? And he was like, oh, I'm going to send you this outpatient program in San Bernardino. And I'm like, outpatient isn't going to work for me. Like, you don't understand, bro. Like, I've only been out a few days and I've already been in the detective's office and I'm getting loaded again. Like, this is not going to work. And
that deal was presented to me too, and they're like, just go there and piss dirty, and then they'll refer you over. They already figured it out. Like, we have to send you here first. Go there, fuck that up, and we'll send you inpatient.
Oh, okay.
They knew the whole system by then, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it was an interesting time, and I remember I got my way into a program called New House that was in San Bernardino.
I went through there. Yeah, I was there at the end right before it closed down, dude. That's cool.
My mom went through there.
Yeah, so I went there, and I got myself in. I went out on a walk-in, and I even told the probation department, like, I'm going to find me an inpatient program. And I remember when I went in there, and I was just like, all right. And it was an interesting time for recovery then and recovery houses then because, like, people that were on Cessna beds, which was federally paid beds for, or state paid beds for parolees, got a little bit more love than those of us that were on county beds that were just there trying to help themselves. And I remember I got into it with one of the guys that was running prison politics, and, you know, I'm some kid that doesn't know nothing about prison politics, and he wanted to get mouthy with me, and I wasn't backing down because I don't play, you know, like, that was just not my game. And they ended up asking me to leave New House over that. And I remember calling my parents and letting them know, hey, like, I might need to ride out of this place because, you know, by that time I'd been there over a month, and I think I was a month and a half into the program. And I was doing a pretty solid program. You know, I was actually doing the meetings. I was enjoying the new way of life. And, you know, I remember they said, well, where are you going to go? You going to go to another program? And I was like, no, I'm just going to go, because at that time they just started opening up Pride and drug court. And I was one of the first graduating classes of Pride. And I said, no, I'm just going to go to my outpatient Pride program through the county and then, you know, go to work and start bettering my life and go to meetings. And that was the one thing I loved about New House is they introduced me back to Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah. You know, and if you're hearing this and you don't think the 12-step programs work, there's a reason why every rehab facility always sends us to 12-step programs. Like, just know that.
There's a reason why DCFS sends them to 12-step programs, why every judge and courthouse out there sends them. There's a reason for that, bro.
Yeah, for the one that works for millions.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, and you know, I did it. You know, I was able enough. I got around some people and in the program, and I remember there was this one guy I was going to. They used to have the Serenity Club up there on the north end of San Bernardino, and my grandmother was the one that took me in, and I went and lived with her, and I lived there, and I was in walking distance of the Serenity Club, so I would be down there 2 or 3 before I started working, like 3 times a day for meetings, just trying to get some knowledge about how I could conquer this drug addiction I had, you know, and you know, I got to run in, and I remember I was there so often, and I was like, and then I remember this one guy came in, and and it was funny because he was getting all this love from everybody, you know, and like everybody, there was whoop whoop rah rah, there's Eddie. Yeah. And I was like, well, fuck this guy. Yeah. You know, like, who's this guy coming into my meetings, getting all this love? Fuck him. Like, I was bad, right? And this happened a couple different meetings, and then I finally, you know, said, you know what, I want that. Yeah. I want to be liked. I want people to go, hey, Kelley, hey, how's it going? You know, all that. And So I befriended this guy, and for many years, me and him were thick as thieves, man. Like we were best friends. Like, and he got me on with some other guys, you know, God rest their soul, Rodney and Clinton Taylor, and they taught me a career. You know, at that time I was working like a telemarketing job and a data entry job, like, and trying to raise. And now I've had 2 kids. Now I've had my second kid has now been because my wife was pregnant with my second child when I got arrested. And now my second child is here, and now I'm 21 with 2 children, and not knowing what I'm going to do with my life. And I had those 2 dead end jobs, and then these guys said, "Hey, we're going to go up here and do some cable work. Are you interested in?" Eddie said, "Hey, are you interested?" They said that they need another guy if you want to go, and I'm like, "Let's go." I cleared it with my probation thing, and I finished up Pride, so I was out of the Pride program, and I started working in San Jose with these guys as a warehouse guy, and that lasted for a little while, and they taught me a new career. I ended up doing everything that you can do in cable TV, from installation to head-in work to fiber optics to whatever, and it took off. It made a career for me, which enabled for me to provide for my family, and until I got hurt, and I did real well for a lot of years, and I went to a lot of meetings. I got to go to meetings up north, and we moved up north for a while so I could reestablish a relationship with my daughter. It was more consistent because it's with the therapist that I needed to do. Plus, I could get a job working not as a contractor in cable TV, but as for AT&T Broadband, which was the biggest cable provider in the world at that time. And, just a lot of great things going on in my life. And then I got up there and I did that, and then AT&T got bought out by Comcast, and Comcast eliminated the position which was network tech across the nation. And they offered me another job, but I'd only been there like 6 months to a year at the time that Comcast came out, and they gave me a severance pay and medical benefits for 18 months. And they asked me, "Hey, do you want to stay? You can stay. You got to take a lower position, and then in a year your rates will be cut like $8 an hour." And I'm like, but I really appreciate it because they liked my work ethic. They knew what I was doing, and I was a good worker. But at the same time, they had guys that were there for 25, 30 years, and all they knew was how to work for them. And I'm like, no, offer them the position because I can go work as a contractor and still make a living, And I did, and I made a really good living those few years. I went and worked as a contractor in the Bay, rebuilding the cable system as pretty much the electrical guy. I did all the electricity and swap overs of power for them, and I made really, really decent money. And I still credit myself to the reason why now we have drive-ups at restaurants, because my wife never knew when I was going to be home because I was out in the city, which was 60 miles away, coming home at late hours, and she didn't know when to have dinner ready. So I would stop at restaurants and just be like, "Hey, can you have a waitress running out to me?" And they'd run out my food to them, and I'd pay them. And that was back in the day, in 2003. And today now it's, a thing. Now we can just go park anywhere and they'll run your food out to you and you can take off, But yeah, and so that went really well. And then we moved back here. I had pissed some people off because I wasn't dealing with my character defects sometimes when I was at work, and which happens, and I ended up getting kind of a reputation. And I worked for a company that didn't pay me a bunch of money, and they owed me a whole bunch of money from all my overtime hours. And I was okay because I was making such good money. I wasn't going to make a stink while I was still working. But once they fired me, then I was like, I think they fired me for a bogus reason. And, because I pissed off the regional managers what happened, because I can be a little mouthy and, say some things back, owning my own part of it, and that happened, and then I went for work for another company, and that company was subbing for the company I used to work for, and they ended up saying, "Hey, if that guy works for you, we won't let you do work for us." So they were like, "Hey, you got to go." So it kind of got, I got blacklisted. And so we had to move back here. We moved back down to Southern California, and I started working doing DirecTV, and I was doing real well there until I hurt my back.
How much time clean did you have when that happened?
To be honest with you, I don't really know, because at some point I started having a drink here and there. But I had several years.
Yeah.
But, and like I said, alcohol was really never a big issue for me at that time.
Yeah.
So, but then when I got hurt, that's when things really hit the fan for me, because I remember I got hurt and I couldn't provide for my family any longer. And started. I met a guy who told me about the pills I was getting and that they could sell them. And my fallback too is I can't do something. I can fall back into selling drugs. And this guy just gave me an in. So I was going to doctors, getting all kinds of scripts for oxys, and it was on, and oxys and Norcos, and it was on.
Yeah.
And that was paying our rent. And that's how I justified. And the sick thing about my disease is I would talk about to everybody. Like my parents knew, my wife's parents knew, I was like, yeah, I'm getting scripts from all these doctors and I'm selling them. And that's how we're paying our rent.
Yeah.
It's God. This is God's will for me right now. And that's what I'd actually say. God is providing me with this opportunity so I can still provide for my family.
Wow.
Holy crap, dude, my disease is sick.
Yeah.
And, excuse me. And that happened. And I remember, the whole justification and rationalization behind, what I was doing. And at some point I finally went, well, I'm selling these. I should kind of know, what's going on with them, And I didn't realize that the addiction. So people were meeting me at the pharmacy when I picked up my script and calling me days before, hey, we'll meet you at the pharmacy. Just buy the whole thing from me right now.
Yeah.
And that was enough to pay my rent and be able to provide some food and that I was like, okay, between that and food stamps, we were surviving. I sold my boat, I sold my car, I sold, I didn't, and then I decided that I still had all the pain from being hurt. So, for me, weed is a cure-all. I'm one of those ones that think, municipal marijuana is a good thing, at least I thought. And so I started smoking for my pain because I was selling all my pain pills. And I did that, and it was on and cracking one more time. And then I, started doing speed again. And next thing you know, we're getting evicted. Yeah, all those great things that go along with it. The only thing that didn't happen is I didn't end up in an orange jumpsuit one more time.
Yeah.
And my wife had moved out from me, and I was once again putting her through hell, just her having to watch me put myself through hell. And she couldn't do it no longer. And I remember I let my low and low, and I was actually somewhat suicidal. I was doing enough drugs at that point it might as well have been, it could have been labeled a suicide because I was not trying to not die.
Yeah.
And I started getting really involved in another gang and, being some kind of thought regulator guy and doing all kinds of stupid stuff, kicking in doors and tying people up and, taking them out to the desert, just stupid stuff that I have no business doing. And, I remember there was one time I was ready to go out, and I was going to commit suicide. And I was going to run my truck. I was going to do it Sons of Anarchy style because it was just after Jax did that with the bike and the truck. And I was going to run my truck right into a P&R paper truck, which was I already had it all planned out. And the one person's call that I would have probably answered called me, and it was my daughter. And she's like, "Dad, what are you doing right now?" And I tear up right now even thinking about it. And I was just like, holy shit, what are you telling me here, God? Right. And it kind of came to me all right, I need to get back. And I came back to Narcotics Anonymous, and I said, and don't get me wrong, during this time I always seeked faith, I seeked religion, and I'm here to tell you today I'm not a religious person at all. Do I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior? Absolutely. Right. But I have a personal relationship with him that a church can never give me. Yeah. And I know that because I feel it in my heart. A lot of times I seeked it and wanted it, and I never felt it. Today I feel the presence of God in my life every day. And I just have to look for it. Whether I choose to look for it. Some days I choose not to look for it because I want to be a jerk. You know what I mean? But other times when I choose to look for it and say, okay, let me be an example of your love in my life today, it's a lot more amazing, And, I wish I could say everything's perfect now, The fact of the matter is I go to a lot of meetings. I do a lot with the 12-step programs. I do a lot for people. I have a daughter that's struggling with her addiction to this day and just had a baby. One of the greatest gifts I was gotten is that child that I was talked about that I lost when she was 2.5 and just got to be a part-time dad to. Recently had a child, and last year in January, she was in ICU unit in Orange County on her deathbed. So honest God truth, she finally seeked recovery. She got herself into Laguna Treatment Hospital. She went there. She was there a week and a half, and her pancreas kicked off because she's an alcoholic, and she drank heavily for many years. And it ended up being an aneurysm on her main artery that goes through your pancreas. And the doctors, the hospital she was at didn't know how to take care of it. Anyways, we got that all squared away. And then in December, she was giving birth to her first child. And what an amazing experience that is. And, it's cool to be able to be there. And I remember I went when she was taken to the hospital early because the baby was a month early. And she was in the hospital, and I got to go there, and I said, hey, I understand you don't want me in the delivery room. I want you to know, though, as your father, I'm going to be outside, but I want to be there where I can hear the doctors, because you're only going to be able to retain as much as you're going to be able to retain. You're going to be in all that pain. Right. Your husband's going to be so much worried about your man's going to be so worried about you that you guys aren't going to hear what the doctors are telling you, and somebody needs to retain that information. And she said, okay, Dad, I'm good with that. And it happened, and as she's sitting there, day 2 of labor after they stopped labor and then re-induced 4 days later, so the baby would be at full term. When they re-induced, I was sitting there telling her when to breathe because I could watch the machines and no contractions. And, when she went into delivery and I was standing behind the wall, she goes, Dad, I need you in here now. And that emotion is so raw when you realize, I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it. That is such an amazing experience to get to be a part of. I am so blessed today that I have 4 grandchildren. My other daughter, who I got to raise and was there full time. I'm sorry, I kind of neglected to talk a little bit about her. I got to be her soccer coach. I got to be able to be there every night to tuck her in, and I got to experience a lot of stuff with her that I didn't get to experience with my first child. Yeah. And the great thing about that is, it's funny, is that I get to explain it to them all the time. My children is, I love them just with all my heart. They're my kids. But the love is different. Yeah. You know what I mean? It is. And they understand that. That's the awesome part about it, is they understand, even though me and the love isn't different, but the relationship's different. Right. My relationship with the daughter I got to raise, it seems to be a lot closer than the daughter that I didn't. Yeah. And now she lives here. She lives in Forest Falls, and it just is. They're 2 different people, and it doesn't mean I love them any less. That's so I love that. And the one thing that I realized today is that I went through everything I went to get to be the person I am today. Yeah. And it's amazing. Dude, my life is truly amazing. Like I said, I've been with the same woman for 30 years. I get to be a part of all 4 of my grandkids' life. I get to have a wonderful relationship with my kids. I still have pretty much no relationship with my parents. And that's okay, because that's what works for me. Yeah. At one time I thought I wanted, and people say, well, your parents are both alive. You should, and I envy that. I'm not envy. I'm jelly, on when I see people that have that real close relationship, but it's just that we don't have that. Right. We're not able to have that. It's just not in the cards for us right now. Yeah. And I'm not saying God can't fix that, or we can fix that together, but I can't be the only one that wants to fix something. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's got to be a 2-way street. Yep. And and I don't wish any ill will on my parents whatsoever. Like I said, I think they do the best they can with what they can, but they are who they are, and I am who I am. And I also have my wife, and that's my family today. Is my wife, my kids, and my grandkids, and it doesn't mean I love them any less. It's just I got to do what I can do to be the best for them. Yeah, and sometimes that means I got to let those relationships go. So it sucks, It's a tough one, but dude, I love this podcast. This is awesome. I get to talk about my favorite subject, me. Yeah. So, how long you been clean now? This time? I'm coming up on 6 years in July, end of July.
Coming up on 6. Yeah. What do you think is different this time?
I stopped looking for the separation. I stopped looking for what is different about my story in my life, and others, and just try to concentrate on the similarity. Because unfortunately, I'm a firm believer that society wants me to be concentrated on our differences and be at constant conflict with everybody and everything.
Yeah.
And I bit into that. Like I was. And the fact of the matter is, like, honestly, I think all people want to do good and want to be good. And I think we've just been misdirected somewhere along the way. You know what I mean? I truly believe that. I believe most people want to have a good life, want to be good people. And, you know, don't get me wrong, there's a few that come along and you're just like, wow, like, you know. But for the most part, I think we all want the same thing. It's just our destination all wants to be the same. It's just how we're going to get there to do it. You know? And I think that's the big difference for me. And like this time, it didn't take me being in an orange jumpsuit or my wife leaving me or me being in ICU. Like, all those things have happened to me to make me seek recovery before. And this time it was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm just going to go and do whatever this program says to do. And, you know, for some reason it seems to be working. You know?
As it has for countless others.
You know.
I remember you sharing that too, coming in previous times, and you'd come in and want to prove everybody wrong and like show them how the book's wrong and all this stuff. And like this time you just kind of went with it, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's my experience too.
Yeah. And you know, I admire you, Kelley. I didn't tell you this, but maybe a month and a half ago, I was leaving Redland Skate Park. You remember being there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was leaving Redland Skate Park, and I'm pulling out the parking lot with my kids, and I look to the right, and there's 2 chairs right there, and I'm like, that's fucking Kelley, dude. Right? And they got literature in front of them. Yeah. Right? And they're obviously working steps, bro.
Yes, sir.
Right? And like I tell people all the time, bro, like that's what counts, bro. That's where recovery lays as. What are we doing behind the scenes, bro?
Yeah.
What are we like what's the work that we're doing to help others? You know what I'm saying? Without like needing recognition for. Right, you didn't post a picture saying, "Look, we're working steps today," or you didn't, you know, go and share about it at a meeting. I mean, I share some of that stuff at a meeting because of the spiritual experiences I have of not just working my steps, but allowing like working steps with others, like the spiritual experience I have in there, because that is a message, bro.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
like I get so much from, you know, I was talking to my one of my sponsors about this. I was like, bro, like, right now, you work the full set of steps, right? You have a general idea of what these steps are, right? What they could do for you, right? And it set a foundation. Now, the more you work with others, it's just going to stack on that, bro. You're going to get a better understanding. You're going to get other people's perspective on a more personal note. I've had realizations of, the exact nature of our wrongs like a year ago, and I was like, the exact nature, like I finally understood that, and it took me 11 years to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? Like I get it and I got it, but like I got a deeper understanding of what that meant for me, right? The exact nature, like what causes me to behave in the ways that act out. You know what I'm saying? To act out and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I seen you, and I wanted to tell you, but I don't think I didn't see you. And then when I did see you, I kind of forgot about it. But when I first sat down, I was like, that's right. Kelley was at the fucking part where he steps. And I told my kids, said, hey, there goes my friend Kelley right there. Like, oh, what is he doing? I was like, he's working steps with somebody. I was like, how fucking cool is that, dude? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Dude. You know, like you said, it's the most rewarding.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And unfortunately, our disease likes to not allow us to do those things for ourselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's what I think I try to tell my sponsees, like, hey, if you can't do it for you, do it for me, because I'm gaining so much by sitting there and just hearing your stuff and what you're getting out of it, you know, and then I get a better understanding of my own self and all of that. Like that's one of those, you know, weird things that like the 12 steps do for me, you know. Like, I didn't understand it. It doesn't really make sense if you think about it, but at the end, I'm like, wow, dude, me helping somebody else is helping myself. Like, what the hell?
I had to watch the AA movie for school because I had to watch it and then I had to do an essay on it.
The Bill W. story?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know which one it was. I don't remember which one it was, but it's with a really well-known actor. And so I was like, all right, whatever. I'm going to watch it, right? I don't really want to watch this. It's old, right? Like, like all that, right? And so there's this famous AA picture, right? Where Bill W. and Bob, right, are, and I can share about this because it's not, but they're sitting next to this guy on the bed, right? And so in the movie, they go to the hospital and they're talking to this guy on the bed and they're talking to him about, and this is like before the steps. This is before a lot of stuff. This is just these two guys like trying to like come up with this mission, right, to help fellow alcoholics, right, and then later on addicts, right, and they're sitting at the bed and they're talking and the guy looks at him and he says, "How is me talking to you gonna keep me sober?" And they looked at each other and they said, we're not here to keep you sober. We're here to keep us sober.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like those moments, bro, it's just like, who would have thought that like the only way to obtain something, I mean, that's not like you talked a lot about like society and the rules that we live by and all that. Like, bro, we're built to like, I have to take something to receive something, right? Yeah. And then you get into recovery, right? And it's a bunch of fucking, probably some of the worst people and the worst decisions in the world, bro. Like, I was a fucking asshole. I know you were. Yeah. I know this fool was a fucking jerk off. You know what I'm saying? So like some of the worst decision-making people become some of the most loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic, understanding people in the fucking world, bro. Yep. There is nothing. I'm telling you, man, for any listeners who don't know like what 12-step programs are or any of that stuff, I want to tell you, man, I have never met such a loving, caring group of fucking people, right? Who are just raw, real, honest. There is no fucking bullshit that, you know, you get people that like try to save face instead of saving ass, but then you get some people that just come in and they're just fucking raw about who they are, what they've been through, how they're working through it. And more importantly for me, like, how are you still fucked up and how are you managing to fucking maneuver through that, bro? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And when I don't know, man.
Diamonds in the rough, bro.
Come on, bro. Like, it's such awesome. Powerful fucking people, bro. Yeah. You know what I mean? And for me, like, what an honor it is for like each of us, right, to be like a part of that, bro, right, to be a part of something that is far greater than we could even fucking begin to fathom, bro. Like, this isn't just like a Redlands thing. This isn't just a San Bernardino thing. This isn't just a California thing. This isn't just a United States. This is a program saving lives, countless lives, all over the world. And we're such a small piece, but just to be a small piece of that huge fucking puzzle, for me, it's what a gift.
And it's free.
And it's free, bro.
Where else can you get that much for free, bro?
You don't even got to put $1 in
Nobody
the basket.
Wants to, yeah.
I didn't do it for the first 9 months.
It doesn't mean I won't be looking at you weird, but hey, you don't have to put $1 in the basket.
and it's just, I don't know, man. It's crazy how in order to gain anything, right, in a spiritual life, right, which is the program, right, which is like outside of that, you have to be able to give something away. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's a weird concept, but I'm fucking, I couldn't be more grateful to have landed in narcotics. And I was 22 the first time I went to NA, right? And I was like, I ain't like none of these people. I never been to prison. I don't got tattoos on my face. And you know what's crazy? But that's all I seen because that's all I knew before getting clean, right?
Right.
But now, like, I go to meetings like, bro, it's a bunch of normal ass people in here. There's a few gang members and a few people you could tell been there and done that, right? But for the most part, I mean, it's pretty just normal people, bro. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I can only imagine what it was like to see the differences at 15 years old. Yeah. I can only imagine. So I would have been like, I am not like these. And that's another thing too. I was young. I was like, I'm too young to be here.
I had that experience as like growing up in meetings, you know, like hearing all the stories and I held on to those beliefs, you know, like I'm not slamming toilet water, you know, so I'm not an addict, or I haven't lost any teeth yet, so I'm not an addict, or, you know, and then all those things came true, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm an addict.
I ain't robbing old ladies to get my money or get my dope. It's like, come on.
Until I did.
Yeah, until it happens.
And then, you know, by then it's like you're in way too deep. Well, Kelley,
it's funny. Hold on, I wanted to say this little plug.
Yeah.
For the 12-step programs, if you want it to be free and you don't want to put $1 in the basket, please don't.
Yeah.
Please just come until it changes your life. Because for me, I can never give back as much as the 12-step programs have given me in my life to this day. Like, it's like, even if I tried, it just wouldn't happen. Like, my life is that good. And it's, you know, that's all due to the 12-step programs and actually practicing the principles and doing the steps and getting a sponsor and all the stuff we hear every freaking meeting. You know?
And service teaches you all that, you know? Like, when you're a part of paying rent, you're a part of buying books and buying coffee and stuff, like, of course you're going to put money in, dude. How much money do we throw to the dope man?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Daily, dude.
Or the guy that said, oh, I'll be right back and never came back.
Yeah.
You know? Like, we all rented a couple of them.
Yeah. So, you got nothing out of it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just, I can't say enough about 12 steps and actually doing the work. Like, for me, I had a hard time getting, and still to this day, even at 6 years clean, and knowing that or almost 6 years clean, and knowing that the outcome is going to be good, I still have a hard time concentrating on doing what's best for myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, all right, well, you know what, maybe I can skip that therapy appointment, or I can skip that meeting, or, you know what, I don't really have to feel that commitment. Like I can get somebody to cover for me. And the fact of the matter is, when I put in the work is when I get the rewards. When I don't put in the work, guess what? I don't get the freaking rewards, dude. And I think that gets missed a lot of the time. Like a lot of people are just thinking, oh, if I just go sit in this meeting, it's going to be okay. No, put in the work. Yeah. Do yourself a favor. Like we put in a lot of work. For me, I put in a lot of work to do the stuff I did out there. Like, and I don't have to put in that much work in the rooms. You know what I mean? Like an hour and a half. Like, and sometimes I want to, like my head justifies it. Like, oh no, you need to spend time with your wife. Or, you need to go do this, or you know what? It's more important that you go get this job done, or you know, instead of depending on what I need to do for myself, like eat right and, you know, go to my meetings and it all around. Like my head just wants to tell me like, no, don't do that. You know, go do this instead. Don't think about that. Think about this, or, you know, play those video games, or chill out on Facebook and, you know, just let hours go by, or, you know, TikTok, whatever it may be for me, you know, that day. And I'm like, no, I have to battle those still to this day. So it's not always easy, you know, but the work is well worth it.
You know, it's a cool experience that I got to experience myself, is like you run into these people and they're super excited and they're sharing on the first step or third step, and they're just like on fire and they want it for you so bad, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll look into it, you know. I might check it out. And then you do it, and then you're that guy who's excited and hitting people up like, what step are you on, like just get through it or whatever, and like it comes full circle.
Before we get to the last question, I do want to ask you a question, because at the beginning of your share, which is something that's really stood out to me because I didn't know this about you, you talked about some mental health issues, right? Yes. How has that been, like addressing that along with substance abuse and stuff like that?
Well, that's funny you bring that one, because this is one of those real weird ones, and it gets mixed reviews, because I remember for a long time I was like anti-med, and it kept me from, and I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of it kept me from getting well for a long time. And I can tell you, I haven't had to take any mental meds in over 10 years now, but it was a great tool for me to use, for me to learn the tools to be able to cope with my mental illness. And I think that's for me. And mental illness is one of those weird real slopes, because some people get it a lot worse than others, and some people don't get it as worse as others. And like I was one of the lucky ones that I don't need to take meds anymore, but I do have to do things. Like I have to constantly talk to my therapist, and I have to continue to recognize when I see myself going into any psychosomatic episodes or any in my bipolar episodes, like, okay. And then there's sometimes even my wife can contest to this. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm on a manic phase. Leave me alone right now. I want to enjoy this. Like, that's real. Yeah. Like, and that is to this day still, but I don't, knowing that and being able to do something about it. So they're not so often, like I haven't had a manic stage probably about a year and a half.
Yeah.
But I remember I told my wife my last one, like, hey, leave me alone. I'm enjoying this right now. She's like, you're all over the freaking place, but you're getting shit done. I'm like, all right, I'm getting shit done. Let me get shit done.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. And but the sad thing about for my bipolar is I have crashes. Like when I'm a manic, then there's going to be the crash afterwards, and then that's when I usually go into trying to self-medicate or do something I shouldn't be doing, and that's when I really need to be in with my therapist and saying, hey, I'm in crisis right now.
Yeah.
And that's how I address it, and that's what works for me, and I'm just one of those ones, like I have let it slack before, so I started self-medicating, so now I kind of see those triggers. I've learned from those experiences and know that, like, okay, this is what's going on. What are you going to do? How are you going to keep it from going here or going there and doing that? And then it takes work, though. It takes a lot of self-reflection and really wanting to get into I'm really ready to deal with this.
And you can feel it coming on now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I recognize this. And lucky enough, I have a support group, too, that can also, most of the time I noticed it before, except for my wife, because she knows, 30 years together, she knows me like better than I know myself sometimes. And, she can, sometimes she feels like addressing, other times she's just like, I'm going to let you go, because me addressing is going to be worse than me dealing with you having to go through it. So,
all right. Cool. Thank you, Kelley. Yes. One more question before we go. If you can give one piece of advice to a struggling addict out there, somebody who's been through some of the similar things that you've been through, what would you tell them?
Give yourself a break, and that any addict can recover. Don't buy into that lie, once an addict, always an addict, because I am like one of those ones that do. I remember hearing that, and I bit into it for a while.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, anybody can change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, come in with the true desire. You know, and I love it because we hear it in every meeting. You know, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. You know, every time that I look back on all, because I relapsed several times throughout my years of recovery, I was lacking one of those three every time. You know, because I've used honesty as a weapon sometimes. Like, dude, like I was that guy. Like, I would be so honest with you, you're just like, oh, I don't even want to know about that guy like that, dude. Like, why are you being this honest? Like, but I used it to keep you away.
Yeah.
You know, and but I wasn't always willing. That was the one. Like, I was open-minded and I was honest, but I was not willing. I wasn't willing to do what it takes to stay clean.
Yeah.
You know, and it takes some things. You know, it's not easy by any means.
Yeah.
But it is very simple. You know?
Yeah.
That's the one thing.
Simple, not easy.
That and I believe in them. I believe in every addict. I believe any addict and every addict can recover from the disease of addiction. I do believe that.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Kelley. We appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys
Kelley.
for having me. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it.
For sure. We appreciate
This
it
was
too.
a great
man.
experience.
Oh, yeah. It was good, bro.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. So, everybody listening, please comment, like, subscribe to all of our channels. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Go ahead and follow us on IG and TikTok, which is @TheMessageIsHope podcast _ between each of them, each word. And make sure to share Kelley's story with anybody who might need to hear it.
Yes, please.
All right. We'll see you next week.
We're still struggling now. You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you, and take you off forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.